Hey, everybody, welcome to the Intentional Optimists, Unconventional Leaders guest speaker series. And today I have my new friend, Kara Nicole Bitar, and I am so excited to talk to you today. How are you, Kara?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here and to be speaking with you again.
Um, this week was your podcast episode went live, and I kind of like to do that. I like to pull my podcast guests after getting their story on the podcast. Then I like to pull them in here and say, give us the good stuff. Tell us what you do really well. Your story, though, is really compelling and helpful to many people who have gone through like the whole professional thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm headed for this. I mean, I spent 23 years working in schools of medicine, basically.
hmm
So I worked with people with PhDs, MD PhDs, and I've known some JDs. And so for those who haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast yet, it's episode 96. Why don't you give us just a little brief kind of your story in like a minute or two?
Yeah. So I was a high stakes corporate litigator at one of the largest law firms in the Southeast. I graduated from Duke Law, and I basically planned and prepared my whole life to become an attorney. It was like the since I was in fifth grade, this was the thing I was going to do, and I worked really hard to that end. And I did. I achieved everything that I thought that I wanted, everything that I set out to achieve, and I was doing this really significant legal work, making a lot of money. Really felt appreciated and respected by my colleagues, and I really had all the things, and yet I was deeply unhappy. And so I embarked on this very interesting journey, and now I am an optimization coach. I created programs to help people live their healthiest, happiest, most successful versions of themselves. And I also teach Kundalini yoga. And so all of this, quite frankly, has been surprising to me. I did not see any of this coming. So
I love that part of the story. I didn't see
Mhm.
any of this coming because
Didn't see it coming.
no, and so just really quick as a side note, with your clients, do you find there are a lot of people like you that went the professional route? Or
Yeah.
because, when we're like training to be life coaches and that kind of stuff, they tell you don't just tell everybody that you're gonna give them their best life, right? It's because
Mhm.
like that's too general. So I was like
Mhm.
writing down, it's like the healthiest, happiest, most you said something
Successful.
else. Successful?
Yeah.
Um, and that resonates with really driven professional people, does it not?
Yeah, I think so.
So is
Yeah.
that most of your client base is like what I would call post professionals?
Yeah, most of my client base really is well, in my Kundalini yoga classes, that's a more wide variety of people. For my clients, I think the people that gravitate to me are people who um, have been in that world, right? Have been in that world of the corporate world, or have had like a lot of education or things like that. I just think they gravitate towards me because that was me. That was my experience. I lived it.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's a very relatable story, and especially for professional women who, a lot of times we think, oh, I hear your dog
yeah,
snoring.
I
I
she just snorted so loudly.
think that's great. Um, we are an animal friendly show.
hmm
We are a real life show. I remember
hmm
last summer, well, 2 summers ago when we were having a lawn service. Now I have a 13-year-old, so that's my lawn service. And we were talking yesterday about how much he's grown, and it's like one of the things that you can do now. What are some of the things that you had no idea that you would be happy that you could do? And he says, I can actually push the lawnmower further than 2 inches because he got tall enough to get the right leverage. All that to say, this window back here, that's my backyard. I'm in the basement, and
hmm
we had a lawn service that had these giant, commercial ones, and they would come by in the middle of a live. But all that means that we are doing this live. We are enjoying literally like our happiest, healthiest, most successful in a way that is realistic, that is real, that is duplicatable. And being around people who are that educated. My husband has a master's. I have 2/3 of a master's. It's so easy for those of us in those educated spaces to think, well, the more education I have, I'm gonna find the answer.
Oh my. Isn't that the truth?
Debunk it. Debunk it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like too, it's like the more degrees I have.
Mm,
Like I really feel like that's what I'm seeing with people. It's like the more degrees I have. I don't have an like I have like the medical degree. Now I need the whatever the
or the
master's
MBA.
degree. Right. I have the JD. Now I need, you know what's missing in my life? It's another degree.
Yeah,
Or it's another step up the ladder. Right.
sure.
It's like I'm not as an attorney, I'm not this is the issue. I'm not partner. Or the issue is I'm not the biggest partner. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah. And I think like, when we think about like what is the most powerful thing we can do? When we think about that question, it's like what are potential answers to that question? It's like I think people might give answers like helping others might be the most powerful thing we can do. Maybe giving to charity in some way,
Right.
going into a profession where we can help others, the law profession, the medical profession, becoming a scientist, right? Something like that.
A
Um,
social worker,
a
a
social
nurse.
worker, a
Talk about
nurse.
overworked.
Yeah. Yeah, this like great, yeah, that's really what I think if we really asked people, like, what's the most powerful thing we can do, and maybe people might think, well, I don't know if that's the most powerful thing we can do, but if we take it more, if we move it from the intellectual realm and we take it more into, well, what are people generally doing? Right? It's like, so, okay, so we can hypothesize about maybe what the most powerful thing to do is, but what are people generally doing? Because you would think, like, okay, if something's really powerful, people would be doing it.
You would think.
You would think, right?
What is it they say? Common sense is not always common practice,
Right. It's so
right?
true. But too, it's like, okay, it's like, so we have in our day and our time and whatever, we've got our energy and we've got our attention, right? It's like, so what are we directing our energy and attention towards? What are we doing? Like generally speaking, so I know this isn't everybody, but generally speaking, like what are people doing? Right. And so it's like, how are we spending our time and energy? What are we directing it towards? And I think if we kind of take a broader view, definitely education, right?
Yeah.
People are very much directing their energy and attention at education, at getting degrees, um, accolades, making money, having a good resume. Like,
Yeah.
what can I do to have all the things on my resume, right? And that was even in like high school. I remember it's like how
Mm.
many activities like I have like that I'm doing, right?
'Cause it doesn't matter your score or your grades, it's you gotta have all this other stuff in order to get into the right school.
Right.
Yeah.
And two, it's like people kind of associate it with like, look at how valuable I am. I'm doing all this stuff, right? And so it's like, and then, what else do we direct our energy and attention towards? It's like, well, we direct it towards having a nice house,
Mhm.
towards cars, towards clothes. I mean, look how much I love that you brought up your yard. Look how much time we spend trying to make our yard look nice, right?
Oh, let me tell you, I'm gonna post this pretty soon, but the best exercise for helping you let go of control is handing over the lawnmower to a 13-and-a-half-year-old. The weed whacker has not been used. It's like my husband had to say, "You missed a big swath over there." "Oh, let me go get it." So Sunday afternoon, he's, like, out there doing, like, 2 passes, and you just
Mhm.
have it's really a good exercise in helping you let go, but you realize how
Yeah,
much energy you're spending, yeah, on your lawn.
yeah, yeah. And so it's like, again, it's like we have this energy and attention. What are we directing it towards? And that matters because whatever we direct our energy and attention towards, it grows. It's
Right.
like giving water to a flower, like water and sunlight to a flower. We have this energy and attention. What are we directing it towards? Because
Mm,
that's going to grow. That's going to be the thing that is now like that we're growing, that we're nourishing. And so, it's like, of course, we do have people in situations in this country who are just trying to survive. We do have
yes.
that. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, too, though, this isn't just about people like, I have to have this nice house to survive. Like, no, you don't. You don't have to have a 5-bedroom house to survive or whatever. And I just want to make clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with these things. I'm just trying to show where are we directing our energy and attention. And so I think that the general messaging is, and let me know, kind of like your thoughts on this, but it's like we have this general messaging of like, here are the powerful things to do. Work hard,
Yep.
That's very strong messaging. Get degrees, get educated, make money, make something of yourself, and help others. I do think we have that. Like we do have a general thing of like we do want to help other people. And so I mean, like, do you have thoughts on that about like kind of what kind of general messaging is about what we should be doing or what is worth us giving our energy and our attention to?
Girl, I have so many shoulds in my head. You know, our conversation really spurred me on to, and my next solo episode of my podcast is literally going to be all about trusting yourself because
Mhm,
we are brought up in a society that teaches us to receive all of our affirmation and like you said, I make notes. I'm like, for work hard, there's outward expressions of our value. And when we buy into that, which, as kids, that's just what we're taught. Why wouldn't we buy into that? Right. I mean,
yeah,
it's just, um, it's normal. And then being brought up in a Protestant work ethic and, all these like the specific political views and, it's, you have to line up with everything. And then
mhm,
being able to figure out how to fit yourself into all those pigeonholes, it becomes very standardizing, which I think is kind of what we were looking for. We're products of the Industrial Revolution, are we not? And so it's just, we kind of broke out a little bit in the 60s, and I think we're about to that spot again. We're like people are ready to just say, wait a
mhm,
minute, these standards and expectations, I'm not so sure. But I think that um, education is starting to go down a little bit because I
mhm,
think people are seeing that you can make money. We need people in the trades, and they make a lot more money in the trades than they used to. Um, and people are making lots of money online.
mhm,
People like you and I are entrepreneurs that it's nice that we have degrees, but what we do doesn't require one.
mhm,
Um, and it might require training, but it doesn't require a degree. But money for sure is still, that's like up here, right?
mhm,
And
yeah,
achieving outward success and meeting these expectations and stand our society has, and it's really hard. I'm a disc consultant, so I know that 70% of the population are what we call steadies. It's like this, if it's a pie, it's this giant piece of the pie. And there's a reason they're called steadies. They're the team players, they're the backbones, but they all prefer to be steadies, prefer to be kind of together. So it's very natural for us as a whole society to want to conform, right, to all of these things.
mhm.
And the problem is, number one, they may not line up with our values, our core values. Number two, I think this is probably where you're headed. It's like, if you're not created to do that, it kind of doesn't work, right?
Yeah, can you say that again, what you just said? I just wanna make sure I heard it clearly.
Yeah, so the things that don't work with conforming to the norms
Mhm,
is, number one, it may not align with our values, our own
mhm,
intrinsic internal core values, the things that are like our own non-negotiables. And then it also might not line up with how we're created, what our wiring
mhm,
is like, what our personality is like, and our
yeah,
skills. And I
yeah.
think that's kind of one of your main points, is it not?
Yeah, and so that's so this is the thing, it's like we things are changing for sure, and I think I mean, obviously, I think that's an amazing thing. Um, and at the same time, to kind of fully let go and release of these kind of old kind of ways of thinking and ways of seeing the world. But it's like the thing is like, okay, so it's like we have these all these things that we think we should do and we need to do and we have to do, and all these things that we kind of prize and value, and all these things that we're told are so important, like the money. It's like, and two, again, there is nothing wrong with money. I actually believe having being in abundance is our natural state. But again, like it's like the bigger your house, the happier you're going to be or something, right? And so
Well, and my first foray into entrepreneurship was as an Amway distributor many, many, many years ago.
hmm,
And one of the things that they taught us that I have never lost is that you can be poor at any income level. And it's real easy to get that bigger house and then realize I spent all this money, but what can I do with that money? Now we look at it very differently and we say, any money that we have, we could use for so many different things. They don't need to be, but that's our own value system now, right? It's like, I don't feel the need to collect things, but it's even the other thing that we didn't mention was I'm a mom, right? So there's a certain amount of shoulds that go along with that.
Mhm.
And I struggled at the very beginning because Nathan is adopted and he came into my heart and in my life when I was 42. So for me, I struggled. I already had a career and my demographic, my socioeconomic status, everything told me my background that moms stay home with their kids. And
Mhm.
so I really struggled with that because I had a good job and I had friends who were my age who had several children. My sister's 4 years younger than me, and her oldest was 13 or 14 when he was born. And, I had friends say, "Oh, you did it the right way," because they were like running around with kids and I had a career. And I'm like,
Mhm.
it wasn't planned, right? It's like just said, I had no idea this is where I was going to go.
Mhm.
And so I think that's another one that a lot of women face, especially, and I'm learning to navigate that the should of the mom versus the professional. And I had a really great mentor who also is a JD, believe it or not,
Mhm.
contract negotiator in my office. And I said, I just really am struggling. And she looked at me and she said, I got news for you, girl. She said, he needs to see you succeed, number one. Number two, he's going to need you more when he's in middle school than he needs you when he's two. I said, "Oh, really?" And so having a wise woman like that be able to say something to me at that moment in time helped, but that's a huge should, right?
Yeah, and so the motherhood thing too, and how that kind of this general overarching how that looks or how it should look.
Mhm. Should. Mhm.
And so, but if we overall though we kind of look at, okay, so this is kind of the things we're told to do. This is kind of things we're told to direct our energy and attention at. We're told to make a priority of. I mean, listen, I made, my whole life this like priority of becoming an attorney, of getting these degrees, becoming an attorney. Like that was like my life. Talk about time, energy, and attention, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm not alone in that. I know other people did it for law school, they did it for med school, or they did it for whatever profession that they, chose or decided to be in, or they did it as a mother, really, in some instances. A lot of women did do that as mothers. And so the thing that I just want to ask though is this working? Because if we look at our society, are people generally in vibrant health and full of energy? Are they in love with life? Are they passionate about life? Is this what the news is full of? How
Oh,
healthy everybody is, right? How everyone's just reveling in this experience,
oh, yes. Of
right?
course.
And so the thing is, we got to take a look at, is what we're doing working? And I would say, it seems to me, and if we, again, this is not everybody, but if we kind of look broadly speaking, disease, fear,
Mm. Yeah.
worry, stress, overwhelm, like these are the more predominant things. And I remember, and I might have said this on the podcast, but it was like I would go into work, and I'm with all of these people who I just like I so respected these people. I just thought they were so intelligent and like all the things, and they were just so dedicated to what they were doing. And I'd go into work and be like, "Oh, how are you?" And it'd be like living the dream, like this really sarcastic, thing. And another thing in my office was people were just like running around, busy and stressed out, like pretty much all the time.
Mhm.
Right? And so it's like, and also too, I just noticed like when you're in different situations, like I went to a yoga class a couple weeks ago and I'm sitting in the class and the people in front of me, they are just complaining. That's what they're doing. They're complaining about this person did this to my yard and
In yoga?
yeah. And so it's like, and then I started going to spin classes, right? I get into spin class and it's not like it's constant complaining, but a lot.
Mhm.
This person's sick. This person has that. I couldn't go, and I'm just like, so if this is kind of the state we're living in, it's like, is what we're doing, is what we're deciding to direct our energy and attention at, like, is this the powerful action? Like, is this the thing to do? Because
Yeah.
you would think with a powerful action, you would get a result
Right.
and you'd get a result that you actually wanted.
Sure.
Right? And so it's like, okay, so people might have beautiful homes and they might have beautiful wardrobes and they might have great resumes, right? But overarchingly, what are we seeing in people?
Mm.
You know, we're not seeing this zest for life. They're not passionate about life. They're not energized by life. What are they? They're
Yeah.
depleted by life. They're depleted by it. It's like, I'm
Yeah,
just
very
so
depleted.
exhausted and worn out of all the things I have to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and people are taking a lot of actions, directing their time, their energy, and attention at these things.
Yeah.
And the question is, are you getting the result that you want?
Because every action's gonna get a result.
Every action is going to get a result.
I
That's
mean,
true.
this is just good old fashioned thought work, right? It's like I have a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, and then a result, and it's going to come from that. And every
Yeah,
single thing you do will get a result. Just isn't
right.
the result you want.
And so, and for me, I took all the actions, right?
Yeah.
I did all these things that I was told were the things to do, right? And things I was told were powerful action, right? Because it's like, get the really good grades, right?
Right.
And then you'll get into a top law school. And I did. I got into Duke. It's like, okay, then you went to Duke. Okay, now that's powerful action. Now when you're at the law school, publish. I did
Mhm.
that. You know, be a guest author speaker. I did that. It's
Mhm.
like these are the powerful actions, right? And then get into one of the top firms. I did that. Do enough to get recruited by one of the top firms. I did that.
Sure.
Then do enough to get hired by one of the top firms. I did that. Then do enough to make yourself valuable at that firm. I did that. Right? It's like, so I did all of the things that I thought I was supposed to do, all of the things that I thought were powerful action. And I think all of the things that we generally hear as being conveyed as powerful action. And so I have this job, I'm doing this significant legal work. And I also did legal work for victims of domestic violence, and I was named the head of that project. So
Mhm.
maybe someone would be like, oh, you're a corporate lawyer. That was the issue. Like, no, I did significant legal work on the corporate end,
Mhm.
and I did significant legal work on a pro bono end with women. And I also did significant work with women because I worked on the parental rights of rapists when I was in law school. So it's not like it's not like you just can look at the work I did and be like, oh, well, you just didn't do meaningful work, right? Like I did.
Mhm.
And then I made a lot of money and I had this charming home in the city. I had two cute little dogs. I had like a husband. I still have a husband. I still have the dogs, still have the husband. I had a
Those
beautiful
you kept. Those were the important pieces.
house, had a beautiful wardrobe. So I had it all. And yet I was so deeply unhappy, so deeply unfulfilled. And so, and it's like, there was something, it was like part of me was like, well, this is it, right? This is as good as it gets. Like, this is just what life is, and it's just not that great. And I really do think like that's part of the problem. It's like, so, okay, what's the most powerful action we can take? And it's like, well, if you're starting with the premise, though, that like life is just this really rough, difficult thing that we're just trying to get through, right?
Mhm.
It's filled with disease, it's filled with hardship, it's filled with stress and overwhelm. That's going to confuse us as to what powerful action actually is, right? 'Cause
Mhm.
we've got this false premise going on over here.
Yeah.
Um, but so the thing for me was part of me was like, this is it, and it's not great.
You're not the only one who's had that thought, girl. I
Yeah,
mean, there are plenty of us who've had that thought,
there are
and
so
they
many.
don't all have I mean, many of them don't have any degrees, right?
Right,
So,
for sure.
I've dealt with plenty of that in my staffers who had no degree, and they really felt like this is it. So it
Mhm.
happens on the entire spectrum,
For sure,
and if we
for
start
sure.
you're right, if we start with that expectation, where we can
Yeah,
go.
where do we go? And I think it happens for, yeah, people of all different professions, all different walks of life. Because again, it has to do with like our general societal messaging. We're getting confused, we're getting incorrect messaging is what's
Yeah.
ultimately happening. And so it's like we can kind of be in this state of like, well, this is all life is, right? And I did have that, like, well, this is all life is. And so, and I was actually told that I had a conversation with one of my colleagues, and I was like, do you feel passionate about life? Do you feel energized by life? Do you feel like excited about life? And it was like, no, like that's just what life is. And like, we have it good. Like, we make a lot of money, we have a good job. Like, just kind of like, just accept it, But it was like, I couldn't. It was like, there was something in me that was like, no, this cannot be it. And it was like, I didn't know if there was something else available or out there, but it was like I had to try.
Mm.
I had to try, I had to find out. And so, what I ultimately offer is, first off, this concept we have that this is all life is, right? This concept is incorrect. It is not true. In this sense, I know that people are experiencing that. And we cannot deny this is happening. Like, we
Sure,
cannot
sure.
deny that people are having these difficult
Right.
experiences. They are. It's happening. But it's like, why is it happening?
Yeah.
It's not just because that's just what life is. Like, that's not the reason. We also have a lot of confusion about what our fundamental nature is. And
Mm.
so that too is leading us to, then it's like, when we're kind of operating from these premises that aren't true, that aren't accurate, then it's like, okay, well, we get confused then as to what powerful action actually is.
Mm.
And so it's like, first of all, we're operating from this premise of, well, life is just this really difficult thing that we're trying to get through,
Right.
and maybe have moments of joy here and there. Like,
Sure.
people do believe that, right? It's not like it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
bad. We live for the weekends to go to the baseball game or the football game or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or we certainly have moments of joy. And that was kind of my thing too. Like, I did have moments of joy when I was working. It wasn't like everything was miserable. Like, it certainly wasn't, but they were just moments.
Right.
They're like flashes in the pan. It was like a moment of, like, a client be like, "Thank you so much. You helped me so much." It'd be like this, like, whew, that felt good. And then gone. I'm back to
Yes.
my feeling just depleted, kind of numb,
And then you're
exhausted.
constantly working to get back to that place of where did I find that? Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So, what is the most powerful thing we can do then?
Yeah, so the most powerful thing we can do is know who we are, know how we function, and be who we are. And I'm talking on an individual level, like who you as a unique being is and how you function. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. That is where everything you want is. Everything you want, everything that feels good to you comes from you being you, from you understanding who you are, from you understanding how you function, and then from you expressing that out into the world. That is
Mm.
the most powerful thing you can do. And what I want to offer is, people may be like, that might, for some people, they may be like,
Sounds very esoteric,
yeah,
right?
what are you
To say,
talking about?
know you, be you, and share you, right?
Yeah. And so again, part of this stems from these false premises that we're working on, these misunderstandings that we have of ourselves. And so
Mhm.
the first of that is, we have this, there is this, like, kind of pervasive belief, this collective kind of conscious messaging, that we come into this experience like blank slates in a way, or at the same time, we come into this experience lacking knowing.
Mm.
We come into this experience um, in some sort of deficient or defective form, in that we need to then go and become something, right? It's like,
Mhm.
we come into this experience and we ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
That's not the question. That is not the question. The question is, who are you right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Right here, right now. That's the question. Because in truth, we come into this experience with profound and great knowing. We come into this experience with unique gifts and talents, with our
Mhm.
own unique creativity. We
Mhm.
come into this experience structured in ways in which we, as individuals, unique individuals, thrive.
Right.
And we're different. We're not
Yes.
all the same.
Yay.
Right? And so, but the thing is too, if you talk to little children or you like look at little like it's like someone said this, it's like you're talking to the Dalai Lama and you don't even realize it. And
I know.
there's truth in that. There is. And it's
Yeah.
like if when we're operating from these false premises, these misunderstandings, like we don't even see it in
Yeah.
many instances. But like, I watch these like shows of like MasterChef Junior, stuff like that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
watch
Yeah.
these little kids
It's shocking.
my position is it's not shocking. That's natural.
Okay, for us though, it's shocking to our senses because we're
Right.
not used to seeing
Right,
it.
because we're caught up in that collective consciousness and that kind of overarching messaging. And so even
Right.
like the judges on the show are like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know how you're doing this." But it's like those kids didn't learn how to do that from somebody. They knew how to do it. It's their
Right.
innate creativity and they're expressing it.
Yep.
Why do some children not seem to express that? Well, it's
It's not
what I
theirs.
like to say is, hmm?
It's not theirs. It's somebody it's that's not their unique creativity.
It's not their unique creativity, and in a lot of instances it happens very young, that as children that unique creativity is, I like to say, it's like we've hidden ourselves from
Sure.
ourselves.
Yes.
We're there, our fundamental nature is there, which is why I say the most powerful thing you can do is know who you are and how you function, because it's there, it's in you. It's not something you go out and become. It's not
Right.
something, it's there and it's in you, and it's in you when you came into this experience and it's in
Right.
you now. But it's like we don't we're operating from these beliefs that aren't true. And
Yeah.
so then that's what's then we are so powerful that that's then what is shaping our experience. And then we treat people that way. We treat children that way, or we even treat adults that way. You know what I
Mm.
mean? We look at them like it's like, oh, you spent your whole life becoming an attorney. That's your creative expression in the world because you have all the degrees to back it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, as I was practicing law, I thought, this is all I know. I don't know anything else. I don't even have any hobbies. So for me, it was like, if I walk away from this, I will have nothing. I will be nothing. I
Sure.
didn't know that there was something in me, that I had these natural gifts and talents, that I held this natural creativity within myself. I didn't know that. I thought it was all this thing that I had to go and get.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I'm going out there and I'm getting all this stuff and I'm trying to become all of these things, but they're not consistent with who I am. They're
Mhm.
not consistent with my fundamental nature. They're not consistent with my gifts and talents. They're not consistent with how I am structured to thrive. And so it's like no matter what I did with that, I was never going to feel good. I was never going to be in a state of like an energized, vibrant,
Right.
I'm excited about life state, because it,
Yeah.
it wasn't expressive of who I was.
Well, that follows much of my journey, similar journey. We might use different language for it. For me, it's been a very deep spiritual journey, and being able to identify with you saying, if I let go of this, who will I be?
Mhm.
Right. And so for me, it was some of the social structures of my religion. It was not the core of my religion. It was not the core of my Christianity, but it was many times, well, much of the social structure and the demographic structure and the some of it is the theological structure or the
Mhm.
political structure of
Mhm.
what I was in. And I, like you, just figured I need to do it better. I need to do it
Mhm.
harder. I need to be more compliant.
Mhm.
I just went down and down and down. And then the last 3 or 4 years is when it started what a lot of people will call a deconstruction. And I think that what you're describing is that in saying is basically we all need to go through some sort of a deconstruction in just different areas. And what I've learned is what you've learned is that the deconstruction and the reconstruction, it's not real. It's just taking off all the layers that we've put on there over the years. And when you were talking, I had this image of those old fashioned paper dolls where I used to cut all the little things out. You have the little tabs on the little dress.
Mhm.
It's like if you have a paper doll and you put 50 dresses on her, it ain't gonna work. I mean, it's just not gonna work. And if you have a paper doll that has these sizes, but all your dresses are this size, it's not gonna work either. If you have a little tiny one and all the dresses are this big, then you're never gonna see her. I mean, that was just something that popped into my head as you were speaking, because
Yeah.
I'm a thinker, and I love to think. And as a lawyer, you have to be a thinker as well. So I don't see how you couldn't be. So I'm just going to assume that, and right here on live. But we go back to that whole blank slate theory, and it has influenced who we are. And one of the things I went back to is, hey, wait a minute, I'm created, and this is my own personal spiritual belief, is that I'm created in God's image. That means that I have a whole lot more than a blank slate going on there.
Mhm.
And his thumbprint or his fingerprints on me, when he created me uniquely, means that I don't have to measure up to all of those expectations and all of those standards, because I am uniquely created. And so many times I think you and I are using very similar language with a very similar message. And I think that also is a beauty of the uniqueness, is that you reach some people and I reach others. And
Mhm.
I just got cold chills, because I think that it's so important for us to hear that we don't have to be what the world tells us we have to be.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't
So
work.
I was
Like, we
miserable
really
as
need to get
well.
real about, like, what's working and what's not. And so, like, we it's like we see so much disease and stress and fear and worry and anxiety, all of these chronic health conditions, like, all of this
Yeah,
depression and, like, and so I was listening yesterday to somebody, they were talking about how they're finding that many people don't have a will to live anymore.
yeah,
That's the new problem, or maybe it's not new, I don't know, but it's like, we really need to get real, like, what we're doing, this, like, acting like people need to go and become certain things and know, like, that's defining their worth and
right,
value.
right,
This isn't working.
right.
What we're currently directing our energy and attention at, it's not working. It's not working.
For me, it was, I very famously bulimia and depression. I put myself in the hospital, and I turned 20 in the hospital on a 12-week program.
Mhm.
So for me, it goes all the way back, right? I can
Yeah,
go all the way back, like you said, fifth grade. I can go at least to fourth grade, when
yeah.
I started with my bulimia tendencies of hiding
Mhm,
food and that kind of thing. I weighed 310 pounds. I mean, when we have incongruencies, I call them, things that don't line up, we're going to deal with that somehow, right? If we can't
yep,
handle the friction, we're going to deal with it somehow.
mhm,
And so then I ended up with a major tool and counseling and, self personal growth.
mhm,
I did gastric bypass surgery, but so for me, I wanted to avoid some of those other diseases, because I could just see it, and I was already on that journey, and I'm really grateful. So
mhm,
Kara, before we wrap up, you point this out, and you say the most powerful thing is to be able to know who you are and to live
mhm,
that well.
mhm,
This is what you help people do as an
mhm.
optimization coach.
Yeah, it is, and I use certain tools too, so I have my own. So first of all, it's like, we spend all this time being educated, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but to spend all of that time, for me to be so highly educated and not understand who I was and
Yeah.
how I functioned, not understand how my mind worked, to not understand how to control and direct it and use it to serve me in powerful ways, to not
Right.
understand that I held within me this powerful guidance that was guiding me as a unique being into everything that it was for me. To not understand my own unique gifts and talents, to not understand how I was structured, like I was structured to thrive. And so it's like, we spend all this time being educated, and I spent all this time being educated, and we spent all this time and energy and money doing all of these things, and it's like, I didn't understand myself. But once I did, my life transformed.
Mm,
It was like every aspect of my life transformed. And just to give a little example of that, so like when you're expressing your gifts and talents, for instance, that's how you receive energy. It's how you're structured to receive energy. So when
it's like
you're,
wind under your wings.
yeah,
Yes.
it's so true. So when you're living from a state of your gifts and talents, you're energized by it.
Hmm.
And so what I was doing, I didn't know I had my own set of gifts and talents. And what I was doing was I was just depleting myself. So I'm like, I'm putting
Yeah.
forth all this effort. I'm getting what you might say is a result, but it's all coming from, I'm just absolutely depleted. When you operate from a place of your individual gifts and talents, it's like you're putting out effort for sure. We don't want to just be like doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
not who we are. You're putting out effort, but you're actually being energized by it.
Right.
That's where you step into abundance. Like I didn't have abundance as an attorney. I promise you, I had money. I didn't have abundance. I didn't have anything close to abundance as an attorney. And I'm not saying being an attorney is wrong. I want to be clear about that. It wasn't for me. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of knowing you. And so, yeah, one of the things I do in my so in my programs, I really called the education we never had but should have. Like the
Oh,
education that was really going to bring us the lives that we know we can have. And even if someone's looking around going like, I don't really think what you're saying is true. All I see is suffering. That's what my whole life has been, or whatever. I just ask you to like really tap in. Isn't there a part of you that wants something different? And you don't just want that. You don't have that desire just to like mess with you, right? That's the
right.
you of you talking to you. That's the you of you telling you there's something more for you.
Yeah.
Go get it. You know what
There's
I
a reason
mean?
we want something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be selfish, right?
No.
Just because we want something doesn't mean we're selfish.
Oh, for
And
sure. No.
it depends on what you do with it and how you handle it, and but
Mhm.
yeah, so you actually help people discover those. You help them use some tools, and you help them
Yeah.
figure out their skills and their gifts and their talents. And it just,
Yeah.
even, you said you never would have thought you'd be doing what you're doing now.
No.
And I don't think I would have ever have thought that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And even just doing this kind of thing as part of my work, I find that
Mhm.
I just love the conversations. And
Yeah.
so it does feel very energizing. It feels like wind. And I
Yeah.
said that the other day. I said, this was so energizing. It just feels like wind underneath my wings. So I know what you're talking about.
It's dramatically different. It's
Yes.
dramatically different. And the thing I want to ask people too is how much can you really help people and benefit? Like, so say you like, I really want to help other people. Well, how much do you do that in a depleted state? It's not to say you can't do it. I did it. I did it as an attorney. I was in a very depleted state almost all the time, and I still did it. But I would
Right.
say what I can do now is far more. How
Yeah.
I can help other people now is far more than I could in that depleted
Yeah.
state where I just felt like I had no energy. Like, so if you really think about too, like when I talk about the most powerful thing you can do, it's you knowing you being you expressing you, because that doesn't just benefit you.
Right.
You show up to this experience energized, creative, like expressing your creativity, letting that flow through you. You show up in this experience in a state of like, I'm excited about life, I'm energized by life, I feel joy about life. And like the creativity that you have is flowing through you. I mean, you want to talk about benefiting people, you want to talk about benefiting the world, like that's
Hmm.
where that's at.
Yeah. So, what is the best way for people to find you, and what should they be asking when they come to, other than just like, please help?
So the best way to find me is on my website. It's KaraNicoleBitar.com, KaraNicoleBitar. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Kara Nicole Bitar, but all my information's on my website. And so I teach Kundalini Yoga. I also do these really unique sessions where we really dive into in one session what your gifts and talents are and how you're structured to thrive. They're pretty powerful sessions.
Mhm.
I also use both of those things in my programs. So I use the Kundalini Yoga, I use the sessions. Like my programs, I just like, it's like, how can I pack as much in and make it as efficient and effective as
Yeah.
possible, even for people who are really busy, because I understand what that's like. And so
Yeah.
I think the thing for people is, if there's something in you that's just like, I feel like there could be more for me and I want more. And I want to offer to you, you can have it because I have it, so I know you can have it.
I
Um,
know.
and schedule a call with me too if you want to just talk about some things. I'd be happy to do that.
And that's all on your website.
Hmm.
And you're basically, it's called Optimize Your Life, correct? I mean, that's
Mhm.
basically what you call it. And again, you can hear Kara's entire, like, the story in our conversation on the podcast of Intentional Optimists, Unconventional Leaders. It was episode 96, which was just this. If you're looking at this live, it was just this last week, but you can find it as number 96, and it's a good story, and I hope it inspires you. Kara, this has been delightful. Thank you so much.
Yes, I've so enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for all that you're doing. I so appreciate it.
Oh, well, and I love that. A lot of times when you find somebody you connect with, it's like you realize, oh, we're saying the same thing. We're saying it
Mhm.
with different language, and it sounds beautiful because then we can talk to so many more people. Because I think
Yeah.
this is a really important message. So, y'all, get in touch with Kara and make sure that you follow the our YouTube channel, Intentional Optimist, so that you can get these guest speaker series as soon as they come out every other week. And we will talk to you next time.